Steps to a New Life. Chapter 1. A Step in the Dark. Sarah stood at the edge of the forest, the weight of the world on her shoulders. It had been a year since the accident that took her husband's life and left her with a limp. Every step since then felt like a reminder of her loss and her struggle. Her once bright spirit had dimmed, overshadowed by pain and grief. Today, she decided it was time for a change. Clutching a small backpack filled with essentials, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped onto the forest path. She had read about a hidden waterfall deep in these woods, said to be a place of healing and renewal. It was a long journey, but she was determined to make it. The first few steps were the hardest, her limp making the uneven terrain even more challenging. But as she walked, something began to change. The fresh scent of pine and the sound of birdsong filled her senses, slowly chipping away at the walls she had built around her heart. With each step, Sarah felt a little lighter. She focused on the rhythm of her breath, the crunch of leaves underfoot, and the beauty of the world around her. The forest seemed to welcome her, offering solace and peace. By the time she reached a small clearing, Sarah was exhausted but felt more alive than she had in months. She set up camp, lit a small fire, and sat down to reflect. The journey had just begun. But already she felt a sense of purpose returning. She realized that healing was not a destination but a journey, and she was finally ready to take it. Chapter 2. Whispers of the Past. As Sarah continued her journey the next day, the forest seemed to come alive with memories. Each step brought a new recollection of her life before the accident. The joyful laughter she shared with her husband, the dreams they had for the future, and the simple, everyday moments that now felt so precious. The path became steeper, the air cooler as she ventured deeper into the woods. Sarah found herself thinking about the day of the accident. It had been a sunny afternoon, much like today. They were driving to their favorite hiking spot when a truck veered into their lane. She survived, but her husband did not. For so long, Sarah had avoided thinking about that day. But now, surrounded by the tranquility of the forest, she allowed herself to feel the pain. She let the tears fall freely, her sobs echoing through the trees. It was as if the forest was listening, offering its silent comfort. As she walked, Sarah found a fallen tree to rest on. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small journal. It had been a gift from her husband, and she had carried it with her ever since the accident but never had the strength to write in it. With trembling hands, she opened the journal and began to write. She wrote about her grief, her anger, and her love for her husband. She wrote about the guilt she felt for surviving and the hope she was starting to feel for the future. The words flowed out of her, each one a step toward healing. When she finally looked up, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the forest. Sarah realized that, for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She knew the journey ahead would be long and difficult. But she also knew she was not alone. The forest was with her, guiding her toward a new beginning. Chapter 3. The Guardian of the Forest. The next morning, Sarah awoke to the sound of birdsong. The forest felt different today, almost magical. She packed up her camp and continued her journey, feeling a newfound sense of purpose. As she walked, she noticed the forest growing denser. The trees were taller, their branches forming a canopy overhead that filtered the sunlight into a soft, green glow. The air was filled with the scent of pine and earth, and the sound of a distant waterfall echoed through the trees. Suddenly, Sarah stumbled upon an old, overgrown path. Curious, she decided to follow it. The path led her to a small clearing where she found a stone statue of a woman holding a bowl of water. The statue was covered in moss, but its serene expression and graceful pose were still visible. Sarah approached the statue and noticed an inscription at its base. The Guardian of the Forest. May she guide you to healing and peace. Intrigued, Sarah dipped her fingers into the bowl of water. It was cool and refreshing, and she felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. She sat down beside the statue and closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the forest fill her mind. In that moment of stillness, Sarah felt a connection to something greater than herself. She realized that the forest, the journey, and even her pain were all part of a larger story. She felt a sense of gratitude for the life she had lived and the love she had known. She also felt a sense of hope for the future and a belief that she could find healing and peace. When she opened her eyes, Sarah knew what she needed to do. She would continue her journey to the hidden waterfall. But she would also take the time to honor her husband's memory and to heal her own heart. She knew it would be a long and difficult journey, but she was ready to face it with courage and hope. Chapter 4: Echoes of Hope. As Sarah resumed her journey, she felt a renewed sense of determination. The forest seemed to welcome her with open arms, and she embraced the solitude and serenity it offered. Every step brought her closer to the hidden waterfall, and each moment spent in nature helped heal her wounded heart. The path grew narrower and more challenging, but Sarah welcomed the physical exertion. It mirrored her internal struggle, and each obstacle she overcame felt like a small victory. She crossed a narrow stream, its clear waters sparkling in the sunlight, and climbed over fallen logs that had become homes for small forest creatures. During one of her rest stops, Sarah encountered an elderly man named Thomas, who was also exploring the forest. He was a retired park ranger with a wealth of knowledge about the area. They shared a meal and exchanged stories. Sarah found comfort in his presence and his wisdom. Thomas spoke about the legend of the hidden waterfall. They say it's a place of great power, he explained. People who find it often experience profound transformations. It's as if the waterfall knows what your heart needs and helps you find it. His words resonated with Sarah. She shared her story, and Thomas listened with empathy. He encouraged her to keep moving forward and to trust in the journey. Sometimes, he said, the path to healing is not a straight line. It's full of twists and turns, but each step brings you closer to where you need to be. Chapter 5: The Heart of the Forest. Sarah continued her journey with Thomas's words echoing in her mind. The forest became more enchanting with each passing day. She saw deer grazing in meadows, heard the distant howl of wolves, and marveled at the beauty of wildflowers blooming along the path. As she walked, Sarah felt herself growing stronger, both physically and emotionally. Her limp became less pronounced, and her heart felt lighter. She began to appreciate the small moments of joy and beauty around her. A butterfly landing on a flower, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the play of light and shadow on the forest floor. One afternoon, as she neared the heart of the forest, Sarah came across a group of children playing by a creek. They were laughing and splashing in the water, their carefree spirits a stark contrast to the heaviness she had been carrying. She watched them for a while, feeling a sense of longing for the innocence and happiness of childhood. One of the children noticed her and ran over. "Are you lost?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Sarah smiled. "No, I'm just on a journey." "Where are you going?" he asked. "To a waterfall," she replied. "A special one." The boy's eyes lit up. "My grandma says that waterfall can make wishes come true." Sarah laughed softly. "Maybe it can," she said, feeling a glimmer of hope. She continued her journey, the children's laughter echoing in her mind. It reminded her of the joy she had once known and the possibility of finding it again. Chapter 6: The Waterfall of Renewal. After several days of walking, Sarah finally reached the hidden waterfall. It was even more beautiful than she had imagined. The water cascaded down a series of moss-covered rocks into a clear pool below. The air was filled with the soothing sound of rushing water and the sweet scent of wildflowers. Sarah stood at the edge of the pool, taking in the beauty and serenity of the place. She felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude. She knelt by the water's edge and let the cool water run over her hands. It felt like a cleansing, washing away the pain and grief she had carried for so long. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped into the pool. The water was cold, but it felt invigorating. She let herself be fully immersed, feeling the water embrace her like a gentle, healing touch. As she stood under the waterfall, she closed her eyes and made a silent wish for healing, for strength, and for a new beginning. When she emerged from the water, Sarah felt transformed. The weight of her grief had lifted, replaced by a sense of hope and renewal. She knew that her journey was far from over. But she also knew that she had found the strength to move forward. Chapter 7. A New Dawn. Sarah spent the night by the waterfall, listening to the soothing sound of the water and reflecting on her journey. She felt a deep connection to the forest and to herself. She knew that she had found a place of healing and that she would carry this experience with her always. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a sense of clarity and purpose. She packed her belongings and began the journey back home. The forest, which had once seemed so daunting, now felt like a friend guiding her toward a new life. As she walked, Sarah felt a sense of gratitude for the journey she had undertaken. She realized that healing was not just about overcoming pain but also about finding beauty and joy in the present moment. She knew that she would face challenges in the future, but she also knew that she had the strength and resilience to overcome them. When she finally emerged from the forest, Sarah felt like a different person. She had rediscovered her inner strength and found a sense of peace and hope. She knew that her husband's memory would always be a part of her. But she also knew that she could honor his memory by living a full and meaningful life. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped into the sunlight, ready to embrace the future with open arms. She had taken 2,000 steps to a new life, and each one had brought her closer to healing and renewal.